The galaxy's most watched news program was showing normal stories when the screens went black. Then a face appeared that made millions of viewers across dozens of worlds freeze in shock. Commander HFY looked nothing like the proud warrior who had led the 47th Assault Fleet just 6 months ago. His blue skin was covered in scars. 2 of his forearms were missing, replaced by crude metal attachments. His large black eyes held something no one had ever seen in a coalition officer before: fear. Behind him, orange flames lit up a dark sky. The sound of distant explosions echoed through his transmission. He sat in what looked like a broken building, concrete and twisted metal visible in the shadows. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began, his voice shaking. "I am Commander HFY of the Hegemony Coalition. I was the leader of the 47th Assault Fleet. We came to conquer a small world called Earth." The news anchors tried to cut the signal, but nothing worked. His transmission was too strong, too well protected. On Zephyr Prime, in the crystal cities of Andromax and the floating colonies of Gas Giant 7, everyone watched. "I am the only one left," HFY continued. "Of 200,000 ships and 5 million soldiers, only I remain. The others are dead, not captured, not missing, dead." He paused as another explosion lit up the sky behind him. His good hand shook as he reached for something off camera. A simple cup of water. Even that small movement seemed to cause him pain. "You must understand what happened here. You must know the truth about these creatures called humans. The Coalition told us they were weak. They told us Earth would fall in days. They were wrong. They were so very wrong." On the Coalition homeworld, emergency meetings began. Military commanders tried to track the signal source. Politicians demanded answers. But on every other world, people simply watched and listened. "We studied them for months before the invasion," HFY said. "Our scouts reported a primitive species. They had barely reached their own moon. Their weapons were simple metal projectiles and chemical explosives. They fought endless wars among themselves over resources, land, and beliefs." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "We thought this made them weak. We thought their division was our advantage. How could we have been so blind?" The camera shook as something large exploded nearby. Dust fell from the ceiling of his shelter. HFY didn't even flinch. He had clearly grown used to the sounds of war. "Our fleet was the largest ever assembled. Energy shields that could stop nuclear weapons. Plasma cannons that could melt mountains. Gravity bombs that could crack continents. We had conquered 12 worlds with smaller forces." He held up a small device. Clearly human technology, crude and patched together. "This is a communication device I took from a dead human soldier. Do you want to know what his last message said? Not a cry for help. Not a plea for mercy. It said, 'Tell my daughter I love her. Tell her we won today.'" HFY set the device down carefully, almost reverently. He was dying. His leg was gone. His weapon was empty. Enemy forces surrounded him. But he thought he had won, because he had delayed our advance by 10 minutes. 10 minutes that let other humans escape. The transmission flickered for a moment. When it stabilized, HFY was looking directly into the camera with an intensity that made viewers across the galaxy lean back in their chairs. "We arrived expecting to fight an army. Instead, we found something else. Something that defied every rule of warfare we knew. When we destroyed their military bases, their civilians picked up weapons. When we captured their leaders, new ones appeared overnight. When we cut their communications, they used their children to carry messages." Another pause. Another distant explosion. This one was closer, and small pieces of debris fell around him. "On the 3rd day, one of their fighter craft rammed my flagship. Just flew straight into our main gun. The pilot could have ejected. Could have lived. Instead, he chose to die to damage us. We laughed. We called it desperation." HFY's remaining hand clenched into a fist. By the 10th day, it wasn't funny anymore. They were ramming us constantly. Small ships, large ships, even escape pods loaded with explosives. They turned their own deaths into weapons against us. The camera picked up movement behind him, small shapes scurrying through the rubble. For a moment, it looked like the transmission might end. But the shapes were just local animals, and HFY continued. "We had energy shields that should have stopped everything they had. But they learned. They watched. They studied every shot we fired, every move we made. Within weeks, they were targeting the exact frequency resonances of our shields." He held up another piece of human technology, a weapon that looked like it had been built from scrap metal and stolen parts. "This gun fires projectiles that change frequency in mid-flight. Impossible technology according to our scientists. But it works. It kills us. The weapon disappeared back into the shadows as Kethvar leaned forward. Do you understand what I'm telling you? In weeks, they went from throwing rocks at our ships to building weapons our best engineers said couldn't exist. A new sound joined the explosions, the whine of approaching aircraft. Kethvar glanced up but didn't seem worried. Either he was beyond caring or he knew these particular aircraft weren't hunting him. We thought we were fighting a primitive species. Instead, we were teaching them. Every weapon we used, they learned to copy. Every tactic we tried, they found a counter for. Every mistake we made, they turned into their advantage. The aircraft sounds faded into the distance. Kethvar waited until silence returned before continuing. But the worst part, the thing that broke us, wasn't their technology. It wasn't their tactics. It was their spirit. They never surrendered. Not once, not ever. Even when facing certain death, they fought. He stood slowly, wincing with obvious pain, walking to what looked like a broken window. He stared out at the burning landscape. I've seen soldiers fight for money. I've seen them fight for glory. I've seen them fight for fear of punishment. But I had never seen anything like this. Turning back to the camera, his scarred face was lit by the orange glow from outside. They fight like the universe itself depends on it. Like every battle, every skirmish, every single shot fired might be the one that saves their species. The transmission began to flicker again, this time more seriously. Static lines ran across the image. Kethvar seemed to notice and spoke faster. I'm broadcasting from their planet now. From Earth, they let me. Do you understand? The same species that destroyed our fleet, that killed 5 million coalition soldiers, they're protecting me now, feeding me, caring for my wounds. The static got worse. His voice became harder to hear. You need to know the truth. You need to understand what we found here, what we unleashed. The image cleared for a moment, just long enough for viewers to see his final words clearly. We didn't come to conquer a primitive world. We came to awaken something that should have been left alone, something that calls itself humanity. The screen went black. Across the galaxy, emergency broadcasts began. But for most viewers, the questions had already started forming. What exactly had happened at Earth? What were humans really capable of? And most frightening of all, were they still on their small planet, or were they coming? In the silence that followed, the universe felt a little smaller and a lot more dangerous. 6 months earlier, the war room of the Coalition flagship buzzed with excitement. Admiral Vex Thor spread holographic maps of Earth across the command table, while his officers gathered around. The blue-green planet rotated slowly in the center, looking peaceful and defenseless. Target assessment complete, reported Intelligence Officer Zarmin. Her 4 eyes focused on the data streams flowing around them. Species designation, human. Technology level, primitive. Threat assessment, minimal. Commander Kethvar studied the information with satisfaction. This would be an easy conquest. After the brutal campaign on Zerion Prime, his fleet deserved a simple victory. Show me their defenses, he ordered. The hologram zoomed in on Earth's surface. Red markers appeared around what looked like military installations. They have approximately 50,000 aircraft, Zarmin reported. Most use chemical propulsion. Their fastest vessels can barely reach orbital velocity. Space presence is limited to a few small stations and primitive satellites. What about ground forces? Asked Captain Nexual, his scales rippling with amusement. Fragmented into nearly 200 separate nation-states, Zarmin replied. They fight constantly among themselves. Current estimates suggest they have about 65 million active military personnel across all factions. The officers laughed. The Coalition fleet alone carried 5 million elite soldiers. Their weapons were thousands of years more advanced. Their ships could appear anywhere on the planet within minutes. Nuclear capability? Kethvar asked, though he wasn't worried. Coalition energy shields could stop nuclear explosions easily, confirmed but limited. Perhaps 15,000 warheads total, spread across multiple factions. Primitive fusion devices, mostly delivery by missile or aircraft. Their largest weapon tested was only 50 megatons. More laughter rippled through the room. Coalition gravity bombs could crack continents. A 50-megaton explosion was barely worth noticing. Admiral Vex Thor manipulated the hologram showing Earth's cities. Billions of lights twinkled across the continents, marking massive population centers. They've packed themselves into dense urban areas. Perfect targets. A few demonstrations of our power should convince them to surrender. What about their space program? Asked someone from the back. Zarmin pulled up more data. Extremely limited. They've sent a few small craft to their moon and nearby planets. No faster than light capability. No energy weapons. No artificial gravity. They're barely space capable at all. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. It was almost too easy. Most species the Coalition encountered had at least basic energy weapons and some form of space fleet. These humans were practically Stone Age by galactic standards. Cultural assessment? Kethvar asked. Highly fragmented. They divide themselves by geography, skin color, belief systems, and economic structures. They've been in almost constant warfare for their entire recorded history. Current conflicts include at least 12 active wars and dozens of smaller disputes. Captain Nexual's scales brightened with interest. They fight their own species regularly? Constantly. Intelligence suggests they've never had a single year without warfare somewhere on their planet. They seem incapable of unified action. This was perfect. A divided enemy was a weak enemy. The Coalition had used this strategy before. Let the locals fight each other while picking off the survivors. Admiral Vex Thor stood and addressed the room. Invasion plan is as follows. We'll position the fleet in 3 groups. Primary force will target their largest population centers. Secondary force will eliminate military installations. Tertiary force will establish orbital control and prevent escape attempts. He paused, looking around the room. Expected resistance duration 72 hours maximum. Expected casualties less than 1% of invasion force. This will be a textbook subjugation campaign. Kethvar felt a surge of pride. His first major command, and it would be an easy victory. Perfect for his record. What about their leadership structure? Chaotic, Zarmin replied. No single world government. The largest nations are led by elected officials who change every few years. Military command structures vary widely. There's no way they could coordinate a planetary defense. The hologram showed the major world leaders, a collection of humans in various formal clothing, giving speeches to crowds. They looked soft, weak, more like politicians than warriors. Intelligence assessment. Humans are a post-scarcity species that has grown complacent, Zarmin continued. Their latest conflicts have been small regional disputes. They have no experience with existential warfare. Existential warfare? Asked a junior officer. War where species survival is at stake, Kethvar explained. Most advanced species never experience it once they achieve spaceflight. These humans have only fought for resources or territory. They've never faced extinction. This made the conquest even easier. Species that had never faced extinction rarely fought hard enough to resist orbital bombardment. Usually a few destroyed cities convinced them to surrender. Weapon effectiveness against human technology? Admiral Vex Thor asked. Complete superiority, the weapons officer reported. Their strongest materials can't stop plasma fire. Their aircraft can't reach our ships. Their nuclear weapons can't penetrate our shields. We estimate 100% effectiveness for all Coalition weapon systems. The meeting was winding down. Orders were given, timetables established, and supply lines confirmed. In 3 days, the 47th Assault Fleet would drop out of hyperspace around Earth and begin the conquest. As the officers filed out, Kethvar remained behind with Admiral Vex Thor. The 2 veterans looked at the slowly rotating planet one more time. Almost feels unsporting, Vex Thor commented. Like crushing insects. The Council wants this system for its location, Kethvar replied. Earth sits at the intersection of 3 major trade routes. Once we clear the natives, it'll be perfect for a logistics hub. What about survivors? The usual 10% kept for labor? Kethvar considered this. Standard Coalition practice was to preserve 1/10 of conquered populations as workers, but humans seemed particularly violent even against their own kind. 5%, he decided. These humans are too unstable for large survivor populations. We'll keep the most compliant ones and eliminate the rest. Admiral Vex Thor nodded. Probably wise. Did you see their historical records? They've committed genocide against their own species multiple times. Can't trust creatures like that. The irony would have been amusing if either of them had understood it. 2 beings planning the extinction of 5 billion humans while condemning humans for violence. Final intelligence update, Zarmin announced, returning to the room. We've intercepted their communications. They have no idea we're coming. Their space monitoring systems are so primitive they can't detect our fleet until we're practically on top of them. Perfect, Kethvar said. Complete surprise. By the time they know we're here, it'll be over. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Make sure our cultural specialists study their surrender traditions. I want to make the transition to coalition rule as smooth as possible. Already done, sir. Humans appear to have various surrender protocols depending on their culture. White flags, raised hands, formal documents. We're prepared for all variations. Kethvar smiled. Everything was perfectly planned. In 72 hours, Earth would be just another conquered world, and he would be celebrated as the commander who added a new system to the coalition with minimal losses. As he walked back to his quarters, the commander felt a deep satisfaction. This campaign would be remembered as a masterclass in efficient conquest. Quick, clean, and profitable. Behind him, the hologram of Earth continued to rotate peacefully, its blue oceans and white clouds hiding 5 billion humans who had no idea their world was about to change forever. None of the coalition officers could have imagined that within 6 months, most of them would be dead and their commander would be broadcasting warnings from the ruins of the very planet they expected to conquer. So, easily, the greatest military force in galactic history was about to learn what humans were really like when their backs were against the wall. The first sign that something was wrong came on day 4 of the invasion. Commander Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching reports flood in from across Earth. What should have been a simple cleanup operation was turning into something else entirely. "Sir, we have a problem," reported Communications Officer Talvex, his voice tight with confusion. "The humans are adapting." Kethvar turned from the tactical display where red markers showed ongoing battles across the planet. According to the original plan, those markers should have disappeared by now. Instead, there were more of them. "Explain," he ordered. "Yesterday, human aircraft couldn't penetrate our energy shields. Today, they're modifying their weapons mid-flight. They're analyzing our shield frequencies and adjusting their attack patterns in real time." The commander frowned. "That's impossible. It would take months of study to understand coalition shield technology." "Sir, you need to see this," interrupted Weapons Officer Kex 9. A holographic replay appeared in the center of the bridge. It showed a human fighter aircraft approaching a coalition destroyer. The ship's shields glowed blue as they activated, easily deflecting the first missile. But the second missile's energy signature changed as it flew, shifting through different frequencies until it found one that passed right through the shields. "How?" Kethvar demanded. "We think they're using our own sensor data against us," Kex 9 explained. "Every time our shields activate, they emit specific energy signatures. The humans are somehow reading those signatures and programming their weapons to match them." Admiral Vex Thor materialized as a hologram from his ship in orbit. "Commander, I'm seeing similar reports across all battle zones. These humans are learning from every engagement." Kethvar studied the tactical display more carefully. The pattern was disturbing. In every location where coalition forces had won battles on days 1 and 2, human resistance was now stronger on day 4. It was as if defeat made them more dangerous, not less. "Show me the London engagement," he ordered. The hologram shifted to show the ruins of the human city. Coalition forces had taken the city center on day 2 after heavy fighting. But now, 3 days later, they were pinned down in a few buildings while human forces controlled everything else. "The humans are using the city's underground transport tunnels," reported the local commander. "They appear and disappear at will. Every time we adapt to their tactics, they change them." Kethvar watched human soldiers moving through subway tunnels, emerging behind coalition positions, striking and vanishing again. But that wasn't the disturbing part. The disturbing part was their equipment. "Are those coalition plasma rifles?" he asked. "Modified ones, sir. They've stripped weapons from our casualties and somehow made them work better. The human versions have twice the rate of fire and use less energy." This was impossible. Coalition weapons were designed to be impossible to operate without proper genetic identification. Yet somehow, humans were not only using them but improving them. How are they bypassing the genetic locks? We're not sure. Intelligence suggests they're using severed limbs from our casualties to trick the sensors. A chill ran through the bridge crew. Using enemy body parts to operate stolen weapons wasn't just tactically innovative, it was psychologically disturbing. "Sir," called out Intelligence Officer Zarmeen from her station, "I'm tracking massive communication activity across the planet. The humans are sharing information at an unprecedented rate. I thought we destroyed their communication networks." "We did. They've built new ones. But not just rebuilt, they've improved the design. Their new networks are harder to detect and impossible to jam. They're using everything from ancient radio technology to quantum entanglement systems they apparently invented in the last week. Kethvar felt the first stirrings of real concern. This wasn't how conquered species were supposed to behave. What kind of information are they sharing? Everything. Tactical data, weapon modifications, coalition weaknesses, even personal messages. But sir, the content is unusual. Show me. A human communication appeared on the main screen. It was a video message from what looked like a young human female, perhaps barely adult by their standards. She stood in the ruins of a city, smoke rising behind her. "This is Maria Santos in Mexico City," she said in accented English. "Coalition forces are using gravity bombs in Sector 7. But we found their weakness. If you hit the generators with modified EMP charges right here," she pointed to a diagram, "the whole system shuts down for 12 seconds. That's enough time to get inside their shields." The message continued with detailed technical specifications that would have taken coalition engineers months to develop. Somehow this young human had figured it out in days. "How many messages like this are they sending?" Kethvar asked. "Thousands per hour. Every human who discovers something new immediately shares it with everyone else. They're treating the entire war as a collective learning experience." Admiral Vexthor's hologram flickered as explosions rocked his ship. "Commander, we need to discuss the situation at Luna Base." The moon base had been their first major victory. Coalition forces had taken the human lunar installations within hours and established a forward command post. "It should have been completely secure. What's the problem?" "The humans are still there. We thought we had eliminated all resistance, but they were hiding in maintenance tunnels we didn't know existed. They've been sabotaging our operations for 3 days." "Sabotage how?" "They're reprogramming our equipment. Every system we install, they modify overnight. Our gravity generators are running backwards, creating anti-grav fields instead of weapons. Our communication arrays are broadcasting human music across the galaxy. Our food processors are... I don't even know what they're doing to our food processors." Kethvar pulled up the Luna Base reports. The situation was worse than Admiral Vexthor had described. The humans weren't just sabotaging equipment, they were turning coalition technology into something entirely different. "Sir, incoming priority message from the surface, DAO," announced Communications Officer Talvex. The message came from Captain Nex Ual, commanding ground forces in what had been called New York. His usual confident demeanor was gone, replaced by something close to fear. "Commander, we need reinforcements immediately. The humans have developed something new." "What kind of something?" "They're using our own weapons against us, but not how you think. They figured out how to overload plasma rifles to create improvised explosives. Every human soldier is now a potential suicide bomber, with the destructive power of a coalition heavy weapon." The implications hit Kethvar immediately. Coalition plasma rifles were supposed to be impossible to overload. They had multiple safety systems to prevent exactly this kind of misuse. Yet somehow humans had not only bypassed these systems but weaponized the failure mode. "How many casualties?" he asked quietly. 17 ships destroyed, 43 heavily damaged. Ground casualties are... Captain Nexwell paused. "We've lost 60% of the invasion force." The bridge fell silent. 60% casualties in 4 days, against a species that was supposed to surrender in 3 days with minimal resistance. "Sir," called out Sensors Officer Vithkor, "I'm detecting unusual activity in Earth's asteroid belt." "What kind of activity?" "Multiple human vessels. They appear to be mining asteroids and constructing... something. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases." Kethvar felt his confidence crumbling. First, humans were adapting coalition technology faster than should be possible. Now they were building unknown devices in space using resources they shouldn't have been able to access. Time to completion of their construction: unknown. But sir, the scale is enormous. Whatever they're building, it's larger than our flagship. Intelligence Officer Zarmian looked up from her station with an expression of disbelief. "Sir, I've been analyzing the human adaptation rate. If this continues, they'll have technological parity with us within 2 weeks. That's impossible." "I thought so too. But look at the data. Day 1, crude chemical weapons. Day 2, modified energy weapons. Day 3, energy shield penetration. Day 4, improvised antimatter devices. They're not just copying our technology, they're improving it at an exponential rate." Kethvar stared at the tactical display. Red markers were spreading across Earth like an infection. Human resistance was growing stronger by the hour, not weaker. Equipment losses were mounting. Casualty reports were horrific. Admiral Vexthor, he called to the hologram. "What's your assessment?" The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Behind him, explosions continued to light up his ship's bridge. "Commander, I've fought in 12 conquest campaigns. I've never seen anything like this. These humans don't fight like any species we've encountered. How do they fight? Like the universe is ending? Like every single one of them is personally responsible for saving their entire species. They don't retreat. They don't surrender. They don't even seem to care if they survive as long as they damage us in the process." Another report came in. Human forces had retaken Berlin using weapons that shouldn't exist. They had somehow created handheld energy cannons from scavenged coalition parts and civilian electronics. "Sir," said Weapons Officer Kex-9 quietly, "I'm recommending we consider withdrawal." Commander Kethvar knew the war was lost the moment he saw Earth's moon begin to move. It was day 18 of what should have been a 3-day conquest. The coalition fleet hung in space around Earth, no longer the proud invasion force that had arrived weeks earlier. Nearly half the ships were gone. The survivors were damaged, desperate, and running low on supplies. The humans had done the impossible. They had not only survived the initial assault but had somehow turned the tide of battle. Every coalition advantage had been neutralized. Every weapon copied and improved. Every tactic countered with something new and terrifying. But nothing had prepared Kethvar for what he was seeing now. "Sir," reported Sensors Officer Vith Kor, his voice barely a whisper. "Luna's orbital trajectory has changed by 17 degrees. It's no longer following natural gravitational patterns." Kethvar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Earth's moon, a celestial body that had orbited the planet for billions of years, was moving in a way that defied physics. Worse, it was moving toward the main coalition fleet. "That's impossible," said Admiral Vexthor, his hologram flickering as his ship's power systems struggled with damage from the latest human attack. "No species has the technology to move planetary bodies." "The humans do now," replied Intelligence Officer Zarmin from her station. "We gave it to them." "Explain." "Remember the gravity manipulation systems we installed on Luna Base? The humans have been modifying them for 2 weeks. They've somehow linked every gravity generator on the moon into a single massive propulsion system." Kethvar felt his blood turn cold. Coalition gravity generators were among their most powerful technologies, designed for terraforming and planetary engineering. The idea of using them to move an entire moon had never even been considered because it was so dangerous. "Sir," called Communications Officer Tal Vex, "we're receiving a transmission from Luna Base. It's unusual." "Show me." The main screen filled with the image of a human female, middle-aged with short gray hair and eyes that held the same terrifying determination Kethvar had learned to fear. Behind her, coalition equipment hummed with modifications no engineer would recognize. "Coalition forces," she said calmly. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, formerly of the Beijing Space Institute. Currently, I'm the commanding officer of Luna Defense Station." Luna Defense Station. They were calling the captured moon base a defense station now. "You have 36 hours to withdraw all forces from Earth and lunar space. If you do not comply, we will complete our current project." Dr. Chen stepped aside and the camera showed what was behind her. Banks of gravity generators, all connected by cables and devices that looked like they had been built from salvaged coalition technology and human ingenuity. Energy readings that made no sense. Warning lights that suggested power levels far beyond safe parameters. "We have converted your gravity manipulation systems into a propulsion drive. Luna is now a guided projectile with the mass of a small planet. In 36 hours, it will impact your fleet at approximately 40% of light speed." The transmission cut out, leaving the coalition command staff in stunned silence. "She's bluffing," Admiral Vexthor said finally. The energy requirements alone would be impossible. And even if they could move the moon, the gravitational effects would destroy Earth itself. But even as he spoke, sensor readings confirmed the impossible truth. Luna was accelerating. Not quickly, but steadily building momentum that would become unstoppable. "Sir," reported Weapons Officer Kex-9, "if that moon impacts our fleet at the stated velocity, the kinetic energy release will be equivalent to approximately 50,000 antimatter bombs. Can our shields stop it?" A 40-ton projectile at 40% light speed? No, sir. Nothing could stop that impact. Kethvar felt the full weight of the situation settle on him. The humans were willing to use their own moon as a weapon. They were willing to risk destroying their planet's tidal systems, their orbital mechanics, possibly their entire ecosystem, just to eliminate the Coalition fleet. What would happen to Earth if Luna impacts us? He asked quietly. Science Officer Nemdar consulted his readings. Massive tidal disruptions, severe climate changes, possible atmospheric displacement. The planet would be barely habitable for decades. And they're willing to do this? Apparently so, sir. Another transmission came in, this time from the surface. It was Captain Nexual, broadcasting from what remained of his ground forces. Behind him, human fighters could be heard closing in on his position. Commander, you need to see what they've done down here. The humans have militarized their entire civilization. Every factory, every school, every hospital. They're all producing weapons now. The camera shook as explosions rocked the area. Yesterday I watched a group of human children, couldn't have been more than 10 years old, disable one of our armored vehicles using homemade electromagnetic pulse devices. 10 years old, sir. More explosions, closer now. They've turned their entire planet into a weapon. Every city is a fortress. Every civilian is a soldier. Every piece of technology is a potential bomb. The transmission dissolved into static as Captain Nexual's position was overrun. Kethvar turned back to the tactical display. Luna continued its impossible journey toward the fleet, gaining speed with each passing hour. Around Earth, human forces had emerged from hiding places that shouldn't have existed, using weapons that shouldn't have worked, fighting with a coordination that shouldn't have been possible. Sir, said Intelligence Officer Zarman, I've been analyzing human communications. They know exactly what moving Luna will do to their planet. They've calculated the environmental damage, the loss of life, the long-term consequences. And they're proceeding anyway. Sir, they're sending messages to each other. Parents telling children they love them, couples saying goodbye, scientists apologizing for what they're about to do to their world. She paused, her voice breaking slightly. They know this will destroy their civilization. They're doing it anyway because they believe it's the only way to protect their species. Admiral Vex Thor's hologram flickered back online. Commander, I've been reviewing our tactical options. We could retreat beyond Luna's effective range. And then, the humans will have a moon-sized kinetic weapon and the technology to use it. They could threaten any world in the galaxy. The full horror of the situation became clear. If the Coalition retreated, they would leave behind a species that had somehow developed planet-killing weapons in 3 weeks. If they stayed, they would all die when Luna impacted the fleet. Sir, called Sensors Officer Vithkor, I'm detecting massive energy buildup in the asteroid belt. The construction project the humans started, it's powering up. The main screen shifted to show the outer solar system. Among the asteroids, a structure the size of a small city floated in space. It was clearly built from salvaged Coalition technology and mined asteroid material, but its purpose was unclear. Energy signature suggests a particle acceleration device, Vithkor continued, but the scale is enormous. If this is what I think it is, they've built a weapon that could destroy planets from interstellar distances. Kethvar closed his eyes and tried to understand what had happened. 3 weeks ago, the Coalition had invaded a primitive world inhabited by a species that fought with chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Now those same humans had weapons that could threaten entire star systems. How? He asked no one in particular. How did they advance so quickly? Sir, said Science Officer Nemdar hesitantly, I've been studying their learning patterns. Humans don't just adapt to new technology. They approach it completely differently than any species we've encountered. Differently how? Most species, including us, innovate incrementally. We improve existing designs slowly and carefully. Humans, they combine technologies in ways no one else would think of. They take risks no sane engineer would attempt. They build things that shouldn't work but somehow do. On the screen, Luna continued its steady acceleration toward the fleet. Human forces on Earth prepared for the devastating consequences of their own weapon. And somewhere in the asteroid belt, an impossible device charged up with enough energy to crack worlds. Sir, reported Communications Officer Talvex, we're receiving surrender offers from several human governments. Surrender offers? No, sir. They're offering to accept our surrender. The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of damaged systems and the quiet countdown to Luna's impact. Somewhere in that silence, Kithvar realized that the greatest military force in galactic history had just been defeated by a species that 3 weeks ago didn't even know aliens existed. "Sir," said Admiral Vex Thor quietly. "Your orders?" Kithvar looked at the tactical display one final time. Earth hung in space, scarred but defiant. Luna accelerated toward them like an impossible bullet. Human ships moved through the asteroid belt, carrying weapons that could reshape the galaxy. He thought about the 5 million coalition soldiers who had died learning what humans were really like when their survival was threatened. He thought about the reports of human civilians using their own children to carry messages through war zones. He thought about a species so determined to survive that they would sacrifice their own moon to eliminate their enemies. "Signal the fleet," he said finally. "All ships are to withdraw beyond the heliopause immediately." Commander Kithvar had expected to die when his escape pod crashed on Earth's surface. Instead, he woke up in a human medical facility, alive and cared for by the same species that had destroyed his fleet. The first thing he saw was a small human child, perhaps 8 years old by their standards, sitting beside his bed. She had dark hair and curious eyes, and she was reading from a device that looked like it had been built from salvaged coalition technology. "You're awake," she said in accented English, then repeated it in what sounded like his own language. "My name is Elena. The doctor said you would be okay." Kithvar tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his body where his missing arms had been. But the pain was manageable. Someone had been treating his wounds with remarkable skill. "Where am I?" he asked in Coalition Standard, Mexico City. "Well, what's left of it. The medical center survived the fighting." Elena set down her device and looked at him with the same unsettling directness he had learned to associate with humans. "Are you going to try to hurt anyone?" The question was so innocent, so practical, that Kithvar almost laughed. "No," he said. "I couldn't if I wanted to." "Good. Dr. Martinez said you probably wouldn't, but Maria thought we should ask anyway." Elena picked up her device again. "Do you want to see what we built?" Before he could answer, she was showing him images of the weapon in the asteroid belt, technical specifications for the lunar propulsion system, and detailed plans for things that would have taken coalition engineers decades to develop. "We learned a lot from your people," Elena explained matter-of-factly. "Maria's really good at figuring out how things work. She says your technology is very logical once you understand the basic principles." "Who is Maria?" "My sister. She's 14. She's the one who figured out how to make your gravity machines move, Luna. She wanted to meet you, but she's busy working on the planetary defense grid." 14 years old. A child barely into adolescence had developed weapons capable of destroying starfleets. Kithvar felt a chill that had nothing to do with his injuries. "Elena," called a voice from the doorway. A human female in medical clothing entered. Dr. Martinez, presumably. She looked tired but not hostile. "You shouldn't bother our patient." "He needs rest. He's not bothering me," Kithvar said. "I'm curious about something, though. Why are you helping me?" Dr. Martinez checked his medical readings with the same professional detachment he would have expected from a coalition medic. "Because you're injured and we're doctors. That's what we do. I'm your enemy." "The war is over," Dr. Martinez replied simply. "Your fleet is gone. You're not a threat anymore. Now you're just someone who needs medical care." She made notes on a device that looked like a hybrid of human and coalition technology. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. We had to amputate what remained of your damaged arms and treat severe radiation exposure. The prosthetics are ready when you feel strong enough to try them." "Prosthetics?" Elena brightened up. "Maria designed them. They use your people's neural interface technology, but she made them better. They can lift more weight and have built-in tools and everything." The casual way these humans discussed improving coalition technology still amazed him. They treated advanced galactic science like a puzzle to be solved by children. "Where are the rest of my people?" Kithvar asked. Dr. Martinez's expression became somber. "Most didn't survive the fighting. We have about 200 coalition prisoners in medical facilities around the world. They're all receiving the same care you are. Why? Why help us after what we did to your world?" "Because that's who we are," Elena said before Dr. Martinez could answer. "Maria says humans are good at 2 things, breaking stuff and fixing stuff. We're really good at both." Over the following days, Kithvar gradually learned the full scope of what had happened. The war had lasted exactly 3 weeks and 2 days. Coalition casualties, 4.8 million dead, 200,000 captured or missing. Human casualties, 2.1 billion dead, countless more wounded, and an entire planet left in ruins. But the humans had won. Not just survived, won completely and decisively. He met Maria on his 5th day of recovery. She was indeed 14, tall for her age with the same practical directness as her younger sister. She carried a device that looked like it could destroy buildings and discussed gravitational physics like other children might talk about games. "I wanted to apologize," she told him. "The lunar weapon was my idea. I know it killed a lot of your people. You're apologizing to me? The plan worked, but I wish it hadn't been necessary. Elena and I calculated the casualties before we implemented it. 1.2 million coalition deaths. Probable destruction of 17% of your remaining fleet." She paused. "I'm sorry it came to that." Kethvar stared at this human child who had casually designed weapons of mass destruction and was now apologizing for their effectiveness. "Why did you build it?" "Because you were going to kill everyone on Earth," Maria replied matter-of-factly. "We had to stop you. The lunar kinetic strike was the most efficient solution." Efficient? Lower casualties than a prolonged ground war, faster resolution than attrition tactics, and it demonstrated capability sufficient to ensure you wouldn't come back with reinforcements. She was discussing genocide prevention like a logistics problem. Kethvar began to understand why the coalition had lost so thoroughly. "Can I ask you something?" Maria continued. "Why did your people think we would surrender easily?" "Because most species do. When faced with overwhelming force, intelligent beings usually choose survival over resistance. But we're not most species, are we?" Kethvar thought about everything he had witnessed. Humans using their own deaths as weapons. Children building planet killers. An entire civilization willing to sacrifice everything to protect their world. "No," he said finally. "You're definitely not most species." As the weeks passed, Kethvar was moved to a more comfortable facility where he could recover properly. The prosthetic arms Maria had designed worked better than his original limbs. Human doctors treated his psychological trauma with the same care they gave his physical wounds. But the most disturbing thing was how normal it all seemed. Human children played in the rubble of destroyed cities. Engineers worked to rebuild infrastructure, while simultaneously developing weapons that could threaten entire solar systems. Families grieved their dead while welcoming former enemies into their homes. "I don't understand your species," he told Dr. Martinez one day. "You're capable of terrible violence, but you're also showing kindness to the people who tried to exterminate you." "Both are necessary," she replied. "Violence to protect what we love. Kindness because that's what we're protecting. But how do you switch between them so easily?" Dr. Martinez considered this. "We don't see them as opposites. A parent will kill to protect their child, then bandage the wounds of their enemy's child. It's the same impulse. Care for life." That evening, Elena brought him a communication device and helped him set up the transmission that would eventually reach across the galaxy. She showed him how to boost the signal, how to bypass coalition communication protocols, and how to ensure his message would be heard by every inhabited world. "Why are you helping me send this warning?" he asked. "Because people should know the truth," Elena said simply. "Besides, maybe if everyone understands what happened here, there won't need to be more wars." As Kethvar prepared his broadcast, he thought about everything he had learned. Humans were indeed the most dangerous species in the galaxy, not because they were violent, but because they could be both utterly ruthless and completely compassionate, often at the same time. They had defeated the coalition not through superior technology or tactics, but through sheer determination to survive and protect what they valued. They had been willing to sacrifice everything, including their own world, to prevent extinction. But perhaps most terrifyingly, they had immediately switched from total war to reconstruction and healing, incorporating their former enemies into their society without hesitation. "Galaxy," he began his broadcast, "I need to tell you about humanity, about what they're really like when their survival is threatened, about what we unleashed when we came to their world." Behind him, explosions still lit up the night sky, not from warfare, but from human construction projects. They were rebuilding their world while simultaneously building defenses that could protect it from any future threat. As he spoke to the galaxy, Kethvar realized the most important truth of all. The coalition hadn't just failed to conquer Earth. They had awakened something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Humanity was no longer confined to one small world. They had coalition technology now, improved and enhanced beyond anything their original creators had imagined. They had weapons that could threaten entire civilizations and the demonstrated will to use them. But they also had something else: a capacity for growth, adaptation, and cooperation that could reshape galactic civilization itself. The universe had been introduced to humanity. After what Kethvar had witnessed, he suspected it would never be the same. In the background of his transmission, human children could be heard laughing as they played in the ruins of their cities, already planning how to rebuild their world into something stronger than before. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were really like,